Hello everyone and welcome to College Football Chronicles, where I am reviewing the best coach for every single FBS team in the nation, including the two teams moving up for the 2025 season. I decided to do this in alphabetical order instead of by conference due to the constant changes, or by region due to it being so uneven. Now, here are the guidelines I will be using for this list. Most schools should be pretty clear and based on numbers and facts. Some will need other deciding tiebreakers, so to be clear, this will be the best coach in school history for the program itself and limited only to that program, not the best coach to ever run through there. For example, Nick Saban will not be the choice for the Toledo Rockets, despite his one solid 9-2 season at the helm. This list is also not limited to the FBS time period itself, and schools can and will have coaches who coached before the team was in the FBS or before college and university divisions were even a thing. The decision factor takes into account overall record, winning percentage, coaching awards, and championships. If there's still some debate after those things were accounted for, we will look at the ones that was most impactful or most cherished by the school and its fans. How many pro players did they develop? Are there streets and buildings named after him? Is there a statue of him? If somehow we still don't have a clear-cut name after all of that, I will just have to make a final decision based on my own opinion, which I hate to do, but if it comes to that point, I will make the fairest call I think I can, or at least explain myself and my choice. If at any point you feel I got it wrong, or missed something glaringly obvious, feel free to absolutely destroy me in the comments, and I will try to be better next time, because all I really want in life is to be a better person to my YouTube audience. With all that said, let's get into this one. Delaware, one of our newest FBS members. There have been some great coaches to come through Blue Hen Country. Bill Murray had a good run in the 1940s, going undefeated 3 times and winning the 1946 Small School National Championship, but he wasn't so great outside of those years. David Nelson won a Small School National title in 1963, which was solid as well. Casey Keeler won an FCS National Championship in 2003 and came close on 3 other occasions, but none of these guys, in my opinion, can match Tubby Raymond. Harold Tubby Raymond played quarterback and linebacker at Michigan in 1946 and 1948 and was also the baseball team captain in 1949. He began coaching as a line coach for Maine in 1951. In 1954, he moved down to Delaware to coach the backfield until ascending to head coach in 1966 and stayed put for a remarkable 36 seasons. Things started off pretty well too, with the team winning 3 Middle Atlantic Conference championships in his first 4 seasons, but things got even hotter beginning in the 1970s. In 1971, the team blasted nearly everyone on the schedule aside from a 5-point loss to Temple to finish 10-1 and went on to win the Boardwalk Bowl 72-22 over CW Post, which is now Long Island University. The Boardwalk Bowl served as the College Division National Championship from 1968 to 1972. Also, as mentioned in previous videos, the NCAA changed in 1973 from university and college divisions to the Division I, Division II, Division III system we have now, and the FCS coming a little later in 1978. That will be an important thing to remember for any upcoming confusion. Also note that in 1970, the Blue Hens moved from the MAC to Independence, so they wouldn't add any conference titles for a while. Anyways, the following year in 1972, Delaware achieved a perfect 10-0, outscoring all opponents 355-81, but for whatever reason, they did not play in the Boardwalk Bowl, but were still named College Division or Small School National Champions for a second straight year. It seems to me that the Boardwalk Bowl wasn't always the standard or official measuring stick, much like no one Rose Bowl or Orange Bowl made you a Maine national champion in the university division. It could just help you make your case. Oh well. It will end forever soon in 1973. Speaking of 1973, the Blue Hens would make it back to said bowl after spending the first half of the season ranked number 1 at their level before unraveling in the second half to finish 8-4, including a 17-8 loss to Grambling in the final Boardwalk Bowl. Now officially in Division II, the 1974 team came so close to another championship. Sort of. I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. The Blue Hens started out 6-0 and reached a number 2 ranking before that pesky-ass Temple knocked them out 20-17. They would bounce back, however, winning the next 6 games, which included a 35-14 win over number 11 Youngstown State in the D2 quarterfinals and a 49-11 blowout of number 2 UNLV in the semifinals to reach the second ever D2 national title game, which was the Camellia Bowl. Now, when I said before they came sort of close, I meant they were a participant in the game. Number 6 Central Michigan destroyed them 54-14 to win the title, with Delaware finishing 12-2. Coach Raymond's teams lost in the quarterfinals in 1976 before returning to the title scene again in both 1978 and 79. In 1978, the team made it all the way to the national title game, even pulling off a huge 41-0 upset win over number 1 Winston-Salem State in the semis, but fell just short of the championship, losing 10-9 to number 5 Eastern Illinois to finish 10-4. But finally, the 1979 team broke the title drought. The team beat everyone in the regular season except, you guessed it, those damn Owls in Philly again, and entered the playoffs 10-1. The Blue Hens, ranked number 1, beat number 6 Virginia Union 58-28 in the quarterfinals, number 5 Mississippi College 60-10 in the semifinals, and number 2 Youngstown State in the Zia Bowl D2 National Championship game 38-21. The following season, Delaware moved up to Division I AA, which we now call the FCS, and there wasn't a big drop-off in success at the higher level. The team won 9 games in 1980 and 1981, and even made the 1AA playoffs in the latter, where they were knocked out by national champ runner-up number 1 Eastern Kentucky 35-28. In 1982, the team, in only its third season at the 1AA level, made it through the regular season with a 10-1 record. And guys, I shit you not, I'm not even joking, that loss was to Temple 22-0. My God. Anyways, the team beat number 9 Colgate 20-13 and number 2 Louisiana Tech 17-0 to reach the national title game. And they nearly had it, but lost a heartbreaker to number 1 Eastern Kentucky 17-14 to finish 12-2. From here, there was a slight drop-off until the team joined the Yankee Conference in 1986. Over the next decade, there was tons of success with conference titles in 1986, 1988, 1991, 1992, and 1995, along with 5 playoff appearances. None of these appearances ever went past the semifinals except once in 1992, where they were beaten fairly easily. In 1997, the team moved to the A10 Conference, where Coach Tubby won another conference title and made it to the semifinals twice more, losing both by close margins. After a 4-6 season in 2001, Coach Tubby Raymond announced his retirement, ending his career with a 300, 119-3 record, which is the best in school history by 214 games. And before you ask, yes, I did the research. 10 of those losses were to Temple. At 300, Coach Raymond has the 14th most wins in college football history, slightly above Nick Saban. For those keeping count, his Delaware teams won 3 national championships and 9 conference championships, and those numbers would be even higher if not for the long run as an independent team and, of course, Temple. He was also named AFC College Division Coach of the Year twice in 1971 and 1972. A bust statue of Coach Raymond can be found at the stadium in which the field was named in his honor in 2002. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2003 and passed away in 2017 at the age of 91. Duke. This one is kind of easy if you know your college football history. It's also pretty easy if you know the name of the damn stadium. While David Cutcliffe brought this basketball school into the football light with a few good seasons in the last 15 years, it wasn't an overwhelming success. And even with Bill Murray, again, the same one from Delaware, he won 7 conference championships, but I still think he sits slightly behind a coaching legend of the sport, Wallace Wade. William Wallace Wade played guard at Brown from 1914 to 1916, where he played in the second ever Rose Bowl, which was not yet officially named that, but still. Wade began his coaching venture with a high school in his native state of Tennessee in 1918 and rose to the college ranks in 1921 as an assistant for Vanderbilt. He would become the head coach for Alabama in 1923, and if not for 2 guys named Bryant and Saban, he'd probably be the Tide's best coach. In just 8 seasons, he racked up a 61-13-3 record with 3 national championships with 3 Rose Bowl appearances and 2 wins. This includes the historic 1925 Rose Bowl, which was the South's first time in it and was a turning point for Southern football. But that's its own story for another day. In what was somewhat of a shocking decision, he left all the success for Alabama for Duke in 1931, which he said later in his life was due to it being a private school and just better aligning with what he wanted. Now, this one can really be split into 2 parts, pre-war and post-war, because both runs were a lot different. More on that later. By his 3rd season, in 1933, Wade delivered Duke its first championship in school history. The team began 9-0, beating the likes of Tennessee, Auburn, Maryland, and North Carolina, before dropping his final game 6-0 against Georgia Tech. This was still good enough for the Southern Conference title to finish 9-1 overall. Wade's team would win another conference title in 1935, going 8-2. The following season, in 1936, the team again came just short of perfection, only dropping a 15-13 loss at Tennessee, while ranked 2nd in the country. Even with that loss, the team was dominant, outscoring opponents 208-28, which included 7 shutouts and another conference championship. This team has been recognized as a national champion by the Berry mathematical system, which doesn't hold much credibility, and Duke does not claim it anyways. Another phenomenal season came in 1938 and was close to being a national title. They could have shoved in North Carolina's face to this day. But the Blue Devils finished the regular season 9-0 and shut out every opponent by a combined 114-0, including a 7-0 win over number 4 Pitt in the final regular season game. They also won the SoCon, of course. However, in the Rose Bowl against number 8 USC, Duke would lose 7-3 on a pass with 1 minute left in the game. Now, even if they had won, number 1 TCU won their bowl game and finished undefeated, so chill out, UNC fans. You could still debate this even if it had happened. In 1939, the team again only lost 1 game to Pitt by 1 point, winning a conference title but being kept out of a bowl and title contention. Finally, we get to 1941, which is still somewhat fresh in my memory because I read a book on the subject within the last year or so, and I'll put that on the screen for you now because I recommend reading it. It is one of the best I have ever read. Duke absolutely blew through the regular season, beating the hell out of most teams with 6 shutouts. They entered the Rose Bowl 9-0, ranked number 2 in the nation, but this is where it gets interesting and what makes the book so fascinating. The Rose Bowl selected Duke as an obvious choice to face number 12 Oregon State on January 1st, 1942. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but something happened December 7th, 1941, that was kind of a big deal. With America set to enter World War II following the Pearl Harbor attacks, the federal government was very hesitant to allow big public gatherings, especially on the West Coast. The game was moved to Duke's Stadium and remained the only Rose Bowl played outside of, well, the Rose Bowl until 2021. Heavily favored Duke somehow lost the game in their own stadium 20-16 and gave Minnesota the easy national title win. There are deeper stories to this, like a player on Duke saving the life of an Oregon State player once they both went to war and then reconnecting 50 years later, or maybe I have that backwards. Just read the book, it's incredible. Or maybe I make it into a video of its own so you don't actually have to read a book. Stay tuned to the channel down the line on that. Following the game, 50-year-old Wallace Wade felt an overwhelming patriotic duty and entered the war effort as a lieutenant colonel, leading a huge artillery battalion. Wade did come back to take over his team eventually, but if I remember correctly from that book, he didn't have the same passion as before, and his team was completely depleted from the war. So it was not the same at all. So let's pause here for a second and say the first run was excellent. It was the star Alabama coach taking over Duke and making them a Southern power with a record of 85-19-7, with 6 SoCon championships and a few points away from a couple national championships, arguably. Unpause. After taking back over the team in 1946, it didn't go so well. He won only 4 games a season for the next 3 years, went 6-3 in 1949, and finally a respectable but underwhelming 7-3 in his final season of 1950. In all, he went 110, 36-7 at Duke, winning 6 conference championships, as I said. After retiring, he served as SoCon commissioner until 1960. In 1967, Duke named the stadium Wallace Wade Stadium. Wade was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1955. Coach Wade died in 1986 at the age of 94 in Durham, North Carolina. East Carolina has had a few decent coaches. Out of the 22 to hold the job, 5 have won conference titles. Sonny Randall and Skip Holtz won 2 each, and while those guys have a solid argument to be my pick here, Randall was only there 3 seasons, and 1 was not good, so there's not much to go by. Holtz was probably better between them, but I didn't love his winning percentage of 58%. So for my pick, which was a bit of a gut pick over Holtz, while he didn't get my pick for Auburn, he does here, Pat Dye. Dye played for Georgia from 1957 to 1960, where he was a first-team All-SEC player twice. Following his time with the Dogs, he was drafted in the NFL and AFL, but turned them both down to go play in Canada for some reason. After a short pro career, he began coaching at Alabama as a linebackers coach in 1965. After a fairly lengthy run with the Tide, he became head coach for ECU in 1974. After going a decent 15-7 in his first 2 seasons, he had a breakthrough in 1976, going 9-2 to win the Southern Conference. The 2 losses that season came by a combined 9 points, including a great effort against number 20 North Carolina. Another good 8-3 season in 1977 set up his best season yet. In 1978, things started slowly, sitting at 1-2 to start the season. Coach Dye then led the team to a 7-1 record the rest of the regular season, and then capped the campaign with a 35-13 win over Louisiana Tech in the Independence Bowl to finish 9-3. After a 7-3-1 1979 season and a 1-year layover in Wyoming, Pat Dye went on to Auburn, which is how we all know his legacy to this day, with multiple coaching awards and conference championships. As for East Carolina, he went 48-18-1 with a conference title and never had a losing season, and never had a season below 7 wins. In fact, his 72% winning percentage is the best in ECU history aside from their current coach, but that is ever changing. It's also reasonable to assume that he would have had another conference championship or 2 if the Pirates had not moved to independence in 1977. Since this entry is about ECU and all of his coaching awards and accomplishments came at Auburn, I won't bother listing them here, but regardless, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2005, and even though it's not the most impressive tenure in the world, it is part of his legacy. Pat Dye passed away in 2020 at the age of 80. Eastern Michigan. This team is statistically one of the worst programs in FBS history, sitting at 9th worst winning percentage of any team that has played more than 100 seasons. But there is one early pioneer who stands out as the Eagles' best coach of all time, and that is Elton Rynearson. Elton played football, baseball, and basketball for Eastern Michigan from 1910 to 1914, who at the time were called Michigan State Normal College. After a couple seasons playing minor league baseball, he began as an assistant coach for Michigan State Normal in 1916 and became head coach a year later. Now, in case I miss it later, it should be pointed out that his 26 seasons with MSN were not consecutive, stepping aside in 1918 and from 1921 to 1924. Anyways, the first great team Coach Elton had was in 1925, where he led the team to a perfect 8-0 record and outscored all opponents by a combined 106-6 on his way to the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association Championship. The Normalites, as they were called, damn, what a creative name, From 1927 to 1930, the team won 4 straight conference titles, going 26, 3, and 2 in that span. There were no real notable wins in that run, however, as they played a lot of big colleges' JV teams. A lot of teams now in Division III or with no team at all, and on one occasion, a team in Canada on the road. I will give them a ton of credit for playing the real Michigan in 1930 and only losing 7-0 to a team that went on to win the Big Ten and go undefeated. The team moved to independence in 1931, so there were no more conference titles, but over the next nearly 2 decades, MSN had 10 winning seasons, including an undefeated 2-0 1943 team and a 5-0-1 1945 team. And yeah, that first one was a joke, but it's technically true. After the 1948 season, Elton stepped down, having only ever coached or played in Kalamazoo, Michigan. He holds a 114, 58, and 15 career record, which is the most by far in school history, and had 5 conference titles, and realistically could have had 6 more had the team stayed in a conference. Following his coaching run, he stayed on with Eastern Michigan, as it would come to be named in 1958 as the athletic director until 1963. In 1969, the new stadium was named Rynearson Stadium in his honor, and in 1976, he was inducted into the first Eastern Michigan Athletics Hall of Fame. He wouldn't get to see these things, however, as he died from a heart attack in 1967 at the age of 73. Florida Atlantic. FAU football is only 24 years old at the time of this recording and has only had 7 full-time coaches ever. The longest-running coach was Miami national champion winner Howard Schnellenberger, but he had a losing record over his 11 seasons. So while my pick only coached for 3 seasons, that's actually tied for second longest. The best Florida Atlantic coach in school history is none other than Tennessee, Alabama, and USC legend Lane Kiffin. Kiffin played quarterback for Fresno State from 1994 to 1996, but after being the backup the entire time, switched to a student coach in 1997 instead of continuing to play. In 1999, he served as a graduate assistant for Colorado State before moving on to an assistant role with Jacksonville Jaguars a year later. Kiffin joined the USC staff in 2001 as a tight end coach, where he stayed coaching various different position groups and later offensive coordinator until he got the head coaching shot with the Oakland Raiders in 2007. That went pretty badly as he was fired shortly into Season 2. Tennessee would take a shot on him in 2009, but he left them high and dry to return to USC as head coach the following year. Trash is still thrown at his head to this day. After being fired from USC early into the 2013 season, he became the Alabama offensive coordinator, where he actually had a ton of success despite all the jabs I've taken so far. Kiffin finally returned to a head coaching role in 2017 at FAU. In his very first season, he led the team to its best in school history. After being blown out early by Navy and number 9 Wisconsin, the Owls won 11 of the next 12, which included a 41-17 CUSA title game win over North Texas and a 52-3 thrashing of Akron, conveniently in the Boca Raton Bowl. The team took a big fall in 2018, going 5-7, but bounced back a year later. Just like 2017, the 2019 team got smashed early by number 5 Ohio State and number 18 UCF, but went 11-1 the rest of the way with a 49-6 blowout over UAB in the conference title game and another convenient Boca Raton Bowl, winning that one 52-28 over SMU. After the season, Kiffin took the head coaching job at Ole Miss, where he remains to this day, with plenty of success, but no breakthrough as of yet. Sure, his time at FAU was short, but those 2 11-3 seasons remain the bar for Owls football as the best 2 in history. Along with the 2 conference titles and bowl wins, he went 26-13 overall, giving him the second most wins in school history. Florida International. Just like FAU, FIU is very young, having only played 23 seasons and have only had 7 head coaches. And the bad part is, none of them have a winning record. This was a bit of a tough call, but I'm going to value the shared conference championship and give Mario Cristobal a slight edge over Butch Davis. Mario played offensive tackle at Miami from 1989 to 1992, where he was first-team All-Big East and 2-time national champion. After a very brief stint playing with the Amsterdam Admirals of the NFL Europe League, he came back to Miami to begin his career as a graduate assistant coach in 1998. From there, he went to Rutgers in 2001, coaching mostly O-linemen, before returning to Miami again in 2004 to 2006. Florida International came calling and made him their second ever head coach in 2007. Things got off to an expectedly rough start considering the 2006 team had gone 0-12. After a 1-11 2007, a 5-7 2008, and a 3-9 2009, the team finally got it going in 2010. Despite starting 0-4, the team won 6 of the next 7 games, to sit at 7-5 entering the final game with Middle Tennessee, which was a 1-point loss and cost them the Sun Belt title outright, and instead tied with Troy in the standings at 6-2. However, FIU had won the head-to-head matchup with Troy in mid-November, so, let's use common sense here and just call FIU the champ. Anyways, the Panthers went on to beat Toledo 34-32 in the Little Caesars Bowl, which was their first bowl appearance ever. This was also the best season in school history to that point as well. 2011 was a mixed bag, but overall a success. The team improved its best season win record to 8-5, but could not win the conference and fell 20-10 against Marshall in the Beef O'Brady's Bowl. And well, that's really it. After going 3-9 in 2012, he went on to Oregon, where he did a pretty good job, and is now back home with the Hurricanes as of this writing, where in 2025, he's got something good going so far. As for FIU, he went a bad 27-47 overall, but had a conference championship and their first bowl win in school history, and in 2010 was named Sun Belt Coach of the Year. Much like Charlotte, this isn't the best thing you'll ever hear, but Butch Jones, while making it to 3 bowls, never won the conference, and only won one of those bowl games. He did have a 9-win season, but I personally value that Sun Belt title over the number 9, and Mario's my guy. Someone will come along eventually and wipe the floor with both of them. Florida. This is probably one of the toughest calls I've had to make in this series, and there's really no suspense here as to my dilemma. Obviously, it's between Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. After putting my personal feelings aside, as the Gators are my most hated team in all of sports, after wrestling with all the factors and considering all the angles, I have decided on a gut call to give the best Florida coach of all time nod to Steve Spurrier. I will explain my exact reasoning in a bit, but let's get into it first. Steve Spurrier has the best playing resume of anyone I've talked about, I believe. He played quarterback at Florida from 1964 to 1966 and won the 1966 Heisman Trophy. After spending 10 years in the NFL with the 49ers and Buccaneers, Steve came home to coach the quarterbacks at Florida in 1978 and went on to do the same at Georgia Tech in 1979 and at Duke from 1980 to 1982. He got his first head coaching job in 1983 with the Tampa Bay Bandits of the USFL, going 35-19 in the team's 3-year existence. After 2 years off, he became the head coach at Duke in 1987 before the Gators called him back home in 1990. Things did not take long to get going. Spurrier came in with a somewhat unfamiliar air raid attack that gave everyone fits. By year 2, his team went 10-2 with notable wins over number 17 Alabama, number 21 Mississippi State, number 4 Tennessee, number 23 Georgia, and number 3 Florida State. Despite losing the bowl game, the head ball coach delivered the team its first ever conference championship with a 7-0 SEC record. The following year was also significant despite a 9-4 record. The Gators played in the first ever SEC championship where they narrowly lost to number 2 Alabama 28-21. The 1993 team would avenge this loss, beating number 17 Alabama in the SEC championship game. Spurrier's teams would four-peat as SEC champion after winning again in 1994, 95, and 96, but we'll get there in a second. Key losses in 1994 kept them just outside the national title scene. In 1995, however, the team went undefeated all the way to the national title game with number 1 Nebraska, and they were just no match, losing 62-24. But finally, in 1996 came the big payoff. The Gators started 10-0 and spent 8 weeks as the number 1 team before losing by 3 to number 2 Florida State 24-21. They beat number 11 Alabama in the SEC championship game to set up a rematch with number 1 FSU in the Sugar Bowl, back up to number 3 ranking themselves. The Gators left absolutely no doubt this time, winning 52-20. Number 2, Arizona State, had lost its bowl game as well, which gave the Gators a consensus national championship, their first in school history. The 1997 and 1998 teams both went 10-2, but due to mostly losses to Tennessee, kept them out of the SEC or national title picture. They returned to the SEC title game in 1999, but were heavily overmatched and finished 9-4, which was crazily the worst record in 7 years. In 2000, key losses to Mississippi State and Florida State kept them out of national contention, but they did win the SEC title game 28-6 over Auburn, their 6th and final under Steve Spurrier. 2001's team had a chance, but number 5 Tennessee dropped to number 2 Florida 34-32 in the SEC championship game. After that season, Spurrier shockingly left his alma mater and all the success he had going there and went to the NFL to coach the Redskins. My research shows that he ultimately regretted this decision, and common sense would tell you that he would have likely won many more SEC titles and a few more national titles too, but that's all speculation, I guess. The Redskins stint didn't go well, and he eventually coached at South Carolina from 2005 to 2015, where he straight up quit on the team mid-season. At Florida, Spurrier went 122, 27-1, which is the most wins of all time, and the best winning percentage by a slim margin at 817. But before we get to all the accolades, we can finally address the debate and why I ultimately went this way. Urban Meyer won 2 national championships, and Steve only had 1. Argument over, right? In most cases, I would agree. But I just saw too many other factors here, and if you tell me I'm wrong, I'll take it, but at least hear me out first. Meyer only coached 6 seasons. Had he done even 2 to 3 more, I think he'd be the undisputed best at Florida. I think longevity has to matter some here, as do the 6 SEC titles versus the 2. Spurrier was realistically only a handful of points away from a second national title as well. I think my biggest and most decisive factor in picking Spurrier over Meyer is that Spurrier inherited a team that had never even won the conference and made them a national player. In fact, you could argue that without the groundwork Spurrier laid, Meyer wouldn't have done much of anything. Meyer, on the other hand, has left Florida in a much worse place, a place they still have yet to fully come out of. When there's articles out there called How Urban Broke Florida and the Swamp Kings documentary that says all sorts of unflattering things, I mean, you get it, I hope. Since Meyer left, the team has won 0 national or conference titles and has gone through 7 head coaching changes, with none lasting over 4 seasons. So there's my reason. As for Spurrier, his honors will be up on the screen now, as there is a lot. In 2017, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. To this day, at the age of 80, he continues to take humorous jabs at Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida State, among others, as he wishes them all the worst, I'm sure. That's going to be all for this one. Again, I am or have already done these for every single FBS team, so please go check out the other ones. This has been Chris of College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me for another video.